Heidi, welcome to CFO at Home. Thanks for your time
My
today.
pleasure. Thank you, Vince.
So, it's my understanding that over 25 years, you've been helping people understand how the mind works and how to change the patterns that shape their thoughts and emotions and behaviors. And that's largely through your training and expertise in neuro linguistic programming.
Correct.
Now, nobody has to explain to me what neuro linguistic programming is. I know all about it. But for the sake of any listeners who may not be as up to speed as I am, could you give us a quick flyover?
You bet. You bet. It's a very unfortunate name. I'm glad you know some stuff about it. Let me share you my simple definition of it. My definition of NLP is so it's neuro-linguistic programming, which ultimately is language and mind and programs and patterns. That doesn't mean anything. So here's what I think. I understand through NLP how the language of our mind creates the patterns of emotions, beliefs, thoughts, behaviors. So everything in our world comes into our awareness. Everything we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, think, that's all the language of our mind. Everything that comes into our mind creates a chemical reaction. That chemical reaction connects to our mind and body and the patterns we run emotions, beliefs, thoughts, behaviors. When I can understand how those patterns get started, we can enhance them, we can change them, we can map them across. So, say for example, I'm really confident on the sports field, but not so much in the office. I can bring that confidence from a sport into the office, and I can eliminate patterns that are no longer working for us. And this is magical because the mind is has that brain plasticity. There's not much that's locked in. So our beliefs, our habits, our behaviors, that sense of who we are, all of it is shiftable. You're in charge of your mind, therefore your results.
And it's interesting that you say the language of the
Yeah,
mind because I think for a lot of us, we don't even realize there is a language of the mind.
correct.
One of the things I've been doing for the last handful of years is I've gotten into mindfulness meditation. And even that has just revealed to me just how much inner monologue is going
Mm-hmm.
on in the mind
Mm-hmm.
at all times. And one of the things that helps you to do is separate yourself a bit from all of that chatter. So you're just not instantly reacting to the
You bet.
chatter. You get enough space between you and the chatter where you do have a little choice as far as whether or not you react to it. So it sounds like this may be roughly related to
I think
that,
it's
but
greatly related, and it's not just that inner chatter. It's also the feelings that come with it. I might be doing something, I get this "ooh" feeling. That feeling is communicating to us. That's part of the linguistic aspect of what we respond to. So we respond to what we see, what we say, what other people say to us, what other people say in a conversation not to us, our own internal dialogue, those feelings that we have, we respond to all of it. But then my question is, how do you know you should? How do you know you should? And what I've figured out, for me at least, and lots of my clients, is there's a different safety mechanism when the internal dialogue's going, you're not good enough for that, you can't do that, that's not for you. And another internal voice and feeling that's maybe more aligned with us that goes, you know what, you've got this, go for it. And it sounds different, it feels different, and it's learning when to pay attention to which one. And that's all within that programming of the mind.
it is not hard for me at all to imagine how this is going to apply to money. And that's where we're going
Excellent.
to shift the conversation now, of
Excellent.
course. And we were talking a little bit before we hit record, even though you don't apply this strictly to money,
Yeah.
just naturally as you're applying this and you're working with people, money comes up a
A
lot.
lot. A lot.
Can you just give maybe a couple of
You
examples,
bet.
common examples of how money enters the conversations as you're working and coaching
You bet.
individuals?
Let me talk probably about the top three things that pop up. One is worthiness. Am I worthy And sometimes when we start talking about worthy, people automatically go financially. I don't accept jobs or I don't even look for jobs that have a higher pay rate because I don't know that I'm worthy of it. I don't ask for a pay increase because I don't know if I'm worthy of it. I don't like money because I don't know if I'm worthy of it. Some people that don't want to charge for their services. Maybe they want to start a business, they want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't want to charge because, again, am I worthy of it? And the other thing that comes in is around relationships and finances and money. And sometimes there's a lack and a limitation. And sometimes it gets a dotted line back to money, but people don't actually think that it's about money. So sometimes it's a little hidden objective in there. And we can chat about that in a little bit, but it's so fascinating that money comes up so often. There's lots of core beliefs around money, but generally when I'm talking to people, it's about lack and limitation, not about fruitfulness and abundance. That's where we get to, but it starts with that deservedness and worthiness and what it means.
And when we've talked about this on the show and other episodes, we've talked a lot about how those thoughts are shaped and how it goes back to childhood and how those money scripts
Yeah.
in your head, a lot of times you can trace back to things that happened in your childhood. So if you were in a family where you were taught that money was scarce or money was bad,
Mm-hmm.
or we the answer to everything as a kid was we don't have the money for that, period,
Right.
point blank, that will shape a certain thought
You bet.
process.
You bet. And then,
When you're working with clients, do you concentrate on going back to root
oh,
cause
yeah.
like that, or is it more
Oh, yeah.
this is where we are
No,
now?
it's about
Okay.
root cause because I think that unless we get back to root cause, the same pattern keeps circling around. It keeps surfacing until we get to that root cause. And NLP has tons of specific techniques that'll actually help us to get back to the root cause. Most people are not consciously aware of this stuff. There was a study that I read a few years ago, and it said that we have conscious access to only between about 3 and 6% of our memories. We have in our unconscious mind, that subconscious mind, we have all of our memories, everything we've ever done, everything we've seen, said, tasted, touched, smelt, we've got those memories. But they're kind of like the forgotten Instagram of our mind. But our conscious mind only remembers 3 to 6% of them. The unconscious mind, that's the stuff that we're responding on. I remember a gentleman, gosh, I would say he would be in my first 5 clients that I ever saw. And he came to me about money. Now, interestingly, he was and still is a day trader. That's what he does for a living. He's exceptional at making money. He was exceptionally bad at keeping it. And he had learned about NLP somehow. And he said, look, I have these patterns about money. Can you help? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And his pattern was he would get money, spend it, consciously or unconsciously. He'd be like, yes, I've got all this money. I made this money. That's fantastic. The dog would get sick. The roof would leak. The car would break down. Out goes the money. Out goes the money. Out goes the money. We went back and tracked back along his timeline. Everybody has a timeline, just like history. It marks out your past, your present, and your future. Anytime you think, what did I do yesterday, you're accessing your past timeline. And remember, your unconscious mind stores everything. He went back to this little movie in his mind. If it's real or not, I don't know. I don't know if it matters. It's where we go that has meaning for us, at least today. He went back to this little movie. He saw this little boy, 3 or 4 years old, in church. The priest was talking about the evils of money. Later on, he told me, I remember what the priest said. And it was something like it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than for the camel to pass through the eye of the needle. He's a little kid sitting in church, probably doesn't want to be there, bored, but everything that's said from a parent, from a priest, from a teacher, from a doctor, from an older sibling, until we're about 7, there's really no filters and we're just taking it all in. So this little kid sitting there, feet can't even touch the ground, And he learns and hears, hey, if you want to go to heaven, you can't have money. You can't be a rich man. This means nothing to him. But he goes through his life. He makes a career making money. And he's good at it. But this unconscious pattern kicks in and goes, you might like it, but you can't keep it because you want to go to heaven. So we shifted that pattern. He then was able to collect his word. I collect money now. He was able to make it and keep it. He and his family moved to Dubai probably about 8 years ago. I still keep in touch with him. He still refers clients to me, and he makes and collects money. He spends it, but he makes more of it. Another woman that I worked with, she had a belief that money was hard to get. And she learned that from a conversation that she was not even a part of when she was little, and just overhearing somebody, money's hard, it's scarce, you can't rely on it. You have to work really hard for it, then you have to hold on to it or else it's going to go away. And she ended up painting for me, I've got it over in my closet, a picture of a money tree, and it's just this beautiful tree, and it's just got money all over it because she changed her belief to money grows on trees. And she painted me this beautiful money tree. And her whole life transformed when she started to change her relationship with money. And mine did too. I can tell you about that later on. But the beliefs that we hold about money create our reality about it. And if you don't have a good relationship with it, you probably have beliefs about, are you worthy? What does it mean? Do you deserve it? Can we have it? And what if none of that was actually relevant? What if money was simply just energy? Give it, receive it. Give it, receive it. Give it, receive it. Same kind of energy as the air we breathe, the food we eat. What if it didn't have as much meaning and it was just energy? Give it, receive it.
That is a lot for me to absorb. And I love it all because I'm thinking so many times money is this funny thing where I think the simple majority of us know what we should be doing. And for some reason, we're not doing what we need to
Right?
do. So you're actually helping people to unlock
Yeah.
that and change those patterns. And those were a couple of powerful examples that you gave. The guy who, even though he was basically a professional
Yeah.
moneymaker based on something that he heard in
Yeah.
church, had this mental
Yeah.
block. And I can imagine that that's a lot of people have a
You bet.
variation of that.
You bet.
Over all of the clients you've worked with, are there particular mental patterns that come up the most frequently in terms of really how people get stuck financially, how they repeatedly get into these cycles of, I know I should change my spending habits. I know I need to be saving. I know I need to not compulsively shop.
Yeah.
Are there kind of common things that you find in their
hmm
background that shape those thoughts?
I don't know if there's common things, but common beliefs or meanings about money. Because one of the
Okay.
first, because everybody, I love the question, what does X mean? What does money mean to you? What does spending mean to you? What does savings mean to you? What does abundance of money mean to you? Because let's go back again to the language aspect and that we're not always aware of our language. Some people have I'm going to call it an awful belief, an awful thing they say to themselves, and it won't sound that bad until we unpack it. I just want enough. I just want enough. Now, the reason I say that it's awful is because if a bill comes in and it's $87, having enough means I have $87.01. And so that itself, I want enough, is limiting right there. So we limit ourselves through our language. We limit ourselves through the meaning that we put on things. When someone has a meaning of being wealthy is rude or wrong or egotistical or selfish, I'm all for that kind of selfish. But again, what if it didn't have such strong meanings? What if it was just energy, just a commodity? And when we take away the strong meanings and we take away deservedness, because I don't know anything out there that gives us rules about what we need to do or who we need to be in order to deserve an abundance of money, a healthy bank account, a healthy relationship. Maybe we just have to choose it and get rid of those patterns and those beliefs that limit us.
It's interesting when you say, and you've said this a couple of times, that money is energy. For some, that may sound
Woo.
exactly a little woo woo, a little power of magical
Yeah.
thinking, and all those things. I think were really big,
Yeah.
maybe a decade ago. There may be some element of that, but I get the feeling that you're talking about something a lot more tangible than
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
Can you drill down on that a bit as far as what you mean
Let
when
me
you say money is
let
energy?
me give you my example of money. So when I started my therapy practice, which was like 1999, I left a really good paying job, too good of a paying job for I think I was 27 years old, and ended up getting into lots and lots of money problems, big debt. And I was fearful and I was scared and I was all kinds of stuff. And I was also living in I'm this because I started a business and I stopped that and I'm spending too much. And I didn't do the shoulds. I didn't do the shoulds. And then one day I was like, hold on a second, Heidi. Take a look at your life. Be a role model in your life. What is going on? And I looked at my relationship with money and I had meanings. I had meanings about what it meant to have it, what it meant to not have it, what spending meant, what not spending meant. I had beliefs and a feeling that if I chose responsibility over not spending something or overspending, that I was limiting and I was holding myself back and I was putting myself in jail. And I was like, why would I put myself in jail? I have a credit card. I can go and buy that. And I got into big trouble. And then I started to flip it around and go, "Okay, what do I want? What do I want my relationship to be like with money?" And I wanted to be friends with money. I didn't want to fear it or have meaning about it or have a thought that with or without it that made me a different person. So I started thinking, and I still do this every time I pay a bill or see it on my bank statement when I look at my automatic debits. And I go, thank you. Thank you for letting me pay my phone bill. Thank you for letting me pay my electricity bill. Thank you for letting me pay for my groceries. Thank you. And I started to have gratitude about it. And then I was like, okay, if I can be grateful for giving money, can I also be grateful for receiving money and not more grateful, just grateful? And yes, I would thank my clients for paying me, but then I would look at the end of the day or the bank statement and I would just go, thank you. Thank you for the ability to serve and for me to get paid. And then I started looking at my meanings that I put behind money. Like if it was having money or talking about money is bad, or it means an ego if I have money. And I went, hold on a second. Does it? Or does it mean that I have a good relationship with money? And the money itself means nothing, really, except for the physical stuff. Money doesn't actually exist. It's a number sitting in a bank account. It's money, it's numbers in a bank account that doesn't actually exist. So therefore, it can only be energy. It's a number. And rarely, I'm even looking around if I'm in Australia right now. Here's an Australian dollar. That's the only piece of money that I have around me. And that's physical currency. But when was the last time you used physical currency for anything? Maybe some of your listeners really still do, but otherwise I tap away, I share, I Venmo it, I whatever it, and it goes through the ether. So I don't mean energy from an esoteric standpoint, energy from a energy standpoint. And the more I give, the more I can receive with gratitude. If it's with reluctance, then I get with reluctance.
I think I get it because what you're saying now is more obvious than ever. Because when we did deal in physical money, you could say, okay, this is money. So the coin you just said, well,
Yeah,
that's money. If I had a dollar bill, I could hold that up and say that's
yeah,
money. But now that it's chiefly digital, you really can't say that it's anything you could even put your hands
no,
on. But yet it's this thing that governs so
yeah,
much of our lives, and it
yeah,
governs our emotions, and it
yeah,
really, it's what so much of our lives revolve
yeah,
around. I can see how that's energy. You have to almost apply some word to it that is more, what is this thing that I can't see?
correct.
But yet I spend every waking hour either working to get it
Or
or plotting
fearing
how
why
to
I don't
spend it.
have it, or trying to figure
Exactly.
out how do I have enough, too much month at the end of the money.
Exactly. It's vapor,
Yes,
and we're constantly chasing
we're
vapor.
chasing
I'm
vapor.
interested. I'm interested to take that concept, and I'm going to give you a couple of
Okay.
scenarios. And I would be very interested to hear your thoughts in terms of how that mindset
Hmm.
can help people to break some common chronic, I don't want to say bad habits, but
Habits.
habits that they would want to
Yeah,
change
yeah.
about how
We'll
they
call them
treat money.
unresourceful habits. How about that?
Yes, there we go. So one of the first things that pops in my mind is if a person is a chronic overspender, they're calling this pattern of, as they say, retail
Hmm.
therapy, and they know that it's not what they need to be doing, but for whatever reason, the dopamine hit or whatever they get from the shopping, they just can't really control that. So, how does this concept of money ultimately being energy, how does that apply in a way of making a person break out of that cycle?
So I might say something that will reinforce the spending. So I'm going to say something before that. That when I work with somebody who has this ongoing spending habit, I take a look at, again, remember that question, what does it mean? What does it mean to buy new things? What does spending money mean? What does it give you? Because it's going to give you something that apparently your unconscious mind feels like it needs. And my guess, based on lots and lots of people that I've worked with that overspending, is it gives them a sense of control, and that sense of control gives them a sense of safety, strangely. And then I look at where in your life are you not safe? Where are you out of control? And the answer is strange because they're out of control with spending. But spending makes them feel like they're in control. And so then we have these two parts of us that are pulled in different directions that actually want the same thing for us, a sense of control. And again, these parts came from somewhere. My guess is that those two parts, the one that's spending and the one that doesn't want to spend, both of them have a desire for control. My guess is they used to belong together inside of us, just for control. And for some, at some point in time, they split, most likely to keep us safe, and they gave us different behaviors. And the original behavior probably was not spending, it was something, but it's manifested itself into spending. And then we look at that and go, I have a money issue. No, you don't. You have a spending issue. You have a spending issue. And that might not actually have anything to do with money. Now, here's where I'm going to cloud it. When we start looking at money as, I'm going to cloud it, but maybe make it clearer at the same time. Because if I start to change my beliefs around money and just look at money as energy, and if I have a belief that the more I spend, the more I receive, it might actually make me spend more because then I'll receive more. However, what will change is the power and the control will not be there. So, therefore, the need to spend starts to come down and eventually get eliminated because then it's not about money and it's not about things. It's about me being me. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, I believe I'm following. And the budgeter and the money educator in me is struggling maybe with that just a little bit
It's
because
okay.
here because here's
Yeah,
what I think I
perfect.
heard, that the path to breaking the pattern is to indulge for a period of time that urge to spend. That way,
Maybe. Maybe. I think
one, it opens you up to receiving more money, and yet somehow that helps to break
I would say I would not
the urge.
recommend I would
Is
say
that
I
what I
would not
heard?
recommend this method, but kind of
Okay. Conceptually,
conceptually.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
let
Oh,
me
oh, okay,
let's do
very
it backwards.
good. Okay,
So if I create that relationship with money that it's just energy, I
yeah,
will spend it more freely and probably receive it more freely. And because there's this free flow of energy, it won't give me the same dopamine hit when I spend it.
okay,
And so, therefore, the need to spend it gets diminished and then eliminated. Again, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend spending a whole lot because then we get a whole different kinds of, we're creating a problem. But when
right,
we
right,
change that energy, then it doesn't provide the same dopamine hit because it's just a given. It's not spending, wow, look what I did, look what I bought, look at this,
okay.
because it
Oh,
changes the
yeah,
relationship with it. But I would still say that if somebody has a spending problem, figure out what the spending is trying to communicate. What are those parts? Because as long
right.
as we have those parts, then we're going to need to get that control or that need for safety or that dopamine hit from somewhere. So let's address that
Right.
need and at the same time create a good relationship with money.
So somehow you have to break that
Yeah.
pattern, because there is this pattern of, oh, I shouldn't do this. I
Yes.
shouldn't do this. And then you do it. Oh, yeah, I enjoyed that so much, but I shouldn't do
Yeah.
this. I shouldn't do
And
this. And over again, you have to break the
you
circuit
definitely do.
somewhere.
And it's interesting those parts because that's exactly what happens there is I shouldn't spend, I'm going to spend. I shouldn't spend, I'm going to spend. And then the one that gives you the best dopamine hit is the one that wins over and over again. So when we
Right.
can reintegrate those parts for safety, wholeness, whatever its purpose and intention is, away goes the need to spend because it's not giving us that same dopamine hit.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've both latched onto this whole thing about the dopamine hit from a pattern
Yeah,
perspective. And I would have to say, on the extreme end, a person may actually have a spending addiction, in the same way that people have
you bet.
addictions to things. But that's way on the extreme end. But even if you pull it back in and you start looking at maybe more typical things, it is kind of that same
Yeah, you
pattern,
bet.
just not as strong and
Right.
not as
Yeah, we might not
consequential.
call it an addiction.
Yeah, yeah, but still, it's you got to break the circuit
You do.
somehow. You got to break the pattern, and part of breaking the pattern is really, it sounds like, understanding exactly what you're getting out of
Yeah,
this.
because you're getting something out of it. You're getting something
Yeah,
out of it. And not just the what's the good, what's the unconscious. Again, is it a need for control? Is it a need for
yeah,
safety? Is it a need to exert power? Is it power? And then whatever
right.
it's communicating, I'm missing. So I need to find how do I get that power, that control, that safety?
And then money just becomes just this thing.
Just this
So
thing.
it, yeah,
We
yeah, yeah, I
take the
got you.
power away.
So
Yeah. The mean.
so I appreciate you walking through that with me. In the time we have remaining, I want to take it from the other extreme. And the answer is probably basically the same
Mm-hmm.
conceptually, but just in fairness, I don't want to just pick on people
Spend.
who spend a lot.
Yep.
There are also people who can't spend. There are also people who, just because of whatever reason, even if they have money, they have a hard time letting go
Mm-hmm.
of it. So the answer and the solution is probably the same, but I'd like for you to either confirm that or deny it, or with your experience, I'm sure that you have some insight to add
Yeah,
to
absolutely. So
that
I'm going to
issue.
call it the miser. So the miserly way, the not wanting to spend, the holding on, the hoarding of money. And usually that has a pattern behind it of fear, which then dotted line we can go back to a need for control and a lack of safety. But that aspect there of fear, of losing, of falling away from it, again, that's telling me somebody doesn't have a good relationship with money and that they have meaning behind money that is disempowering if they release it or lose it. And these are the people that will, what would you like to drink? We've got a special of 10-cent iced tea. Nope, I'll have water. And they won't spend the 10 cents for the iced tea. And there's a phrase that says how you do one thing is in life is how you do everything in life. And if we're holding on to money, what else are we holding on to? Is there then a fixed mindset within that person? Are they easily moved? Do they learn easily? Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Where else does this go into it? Because I can guarantee you it's not just on money and it's not just on the hoarding of money. And again, I'm going to go back to that energy side of things. My father, this is exactly my father while I was growing up, was everything tight. Don't release the money. We can't afford that. And he had those beliefs from his childhood. And then he tried to impart them into to me in my childhood. And then he did something probably about 20, 30 years ago that transformed his relationship with money. And he is not the same man whatsoever. And he went from there was a story, his current wife, when they were moving him out of his house, she threw away some packets of salt. And he went into the trash can to get, like the big trash can, into it to get these packets out. Because he was like, no, I make my own saline for my eye solution, and I need those packets. They weren't like table salt, they were other things. And they still tell this story because it was his miserly, that saves me $1. And he just sold a house for multi millions of dollars because he totally transformed his way of thinking and his relationship with money and took away the meanings of money. And I was talking to him a couple weeks ago about me buying an investment property. And he goes, hey, if you've got the money, go ahead, spend it. And I said, that's not what you would have told me when I was little. He said, yeah, but when you were little, I feared money. Now I love it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there was a something that he went through that changed his view on
Yeah.
that. I don't know if that's something that you can get into, but
I think it
I would
was,
not be doing my job
yeah, you
if I
have
didn't
to ask.
ask.
You have to ask. It was a transition when he retired. And when he retired, he had such a fixed income. And then he went, you know what? I'm going to start trading and doing all this stuff in order to make money. And he ended up being very bad at it. But mostly what he was bad at was he was emotionally getting involved. So he did all kinds of classes and stuff about trading, and one of them was about the psychology of money. And he realized that his psychology of money was holding him back versus empowering him. And he found somebody that could do trading for him. And for probably the first 2 years, he lost because his mindset was still in a bad shape, which affected the guy doing the trading for him. And then he was like, I need to figure this out. So he just went on a hunt to figure out how do I change my psychology and my mindset with it and become friends with money. And the moment he did, it started pouring in. And he, I would say he's now a good collector of money, a free collector of money, and he will not give it out. That would be nice, but he
Right.
helps, he spends, he will buy the iced tea
Right.
sometimes.
And again, I love the way that even in your language, you're emphasizing depersonalizing this relationship with money.
Yeah,
Kind of depersonalizes it.
yeah,
So it's not all about control. It's not all about whatever that thing you think it's giving you emotionally. It's not really in practical terms accomplishing
it's
that.
not.
If you're being tight with money, and this is something I've had to learn, even though I don't think in this conversation we referred to it as control, for me at least, I think it
Yeah,
was
you bet.
control to a certain extent. It's if I have this much, then I'll be
Yeah,
good. And it just occurred to me over the years that you have to scale up and crack Oprah money before any of us can
correct.
really say that.
Correct.
And
Most of
even
us
when
are
I
never
say
going to see
that,
that kind of money.
yeah. And even with that, God forbid, but people with that kind of money, they get ill
They
too.
do.
They get incurable
They do.
diseases
They
too.
do.
So there is no such thing as bulletproof in this
No,
life. Really, no matter how much money you
no.
have, you can become quite bullet resistant.
You can't become
Nobody can.
bulletproof.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
is, and I love it from a psychological perspective. All the stories of the people who win the lottery and like millions and millions of dollars in the lottery, and the majority of them blow it within 5 years. It's gone. That has to do with mindset, not money
Right.
management. That's mindset.
So we're going to talk in a minute about the resources that you provide and the services that you provide that help people to break these
Yep.
cycles. But for someone listening who has maybe in their mind reflected back on the patterns in their life concerning money that they want to break, are there one or two steps beyond this conversation that they would recommend that you keep other than checking out your books or resources?
Yeah, checking out my books and resources, spending money will be useful. Um, that'll be useful. I would say two things. One, know what you want. Know what you want because our mind, part of that unconscious mind, that non thinking unconscious mind, is just a servant to follow orders. And an interesting thing is it's unable to process negatives directly. So, for example, if I say, don't think of a dog, Vince, what colored dog are you not thinking of?
I'm thinking of what you just told me not to think of.
A dog. But
Yeah.
we have to think about whatever we're not thinking about. And so, with that, if I'm constantly thinking, oh, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to not have money, flip it to what you want. What do you want? Because if we're constantly telling ourselves what we don't want or what we want less of, I want less financial stress. That's still financial stress. A less of it might be from a 9 out of 10 to an 8.95 is less emotion, financial stress. What do you want? I want to be comfortable. I want to have an abundance. And that's not just put it in fluffy pink language, but it's that first step of what do you want? Get really clear about what you want. And I think to this conversation, start to recognize what your relationship is with money. What does money mean to you? What does spending mean to you? What does abundance mean to you? And start getting that. And the third thing is I would start asking yourself this question: what is important to me about money? Now, when we start asking that question, we're tapping into values. And values are big abstract words like abundance and security and comfort and control and longevity, that kind of stuff. When I first started playing with my values of money, when I started to improve my relationship with it, I just looked at money in general. But now, every probably about 6 months, I go through my money values, and I now look at my money values of the today money, of future money, of business money, of spending money, because I have different values for each one of those. I never used to even think about future money. I called it savings, and there wasn't much of it. And really, my savings was my spending account. But now I look at future money, which is my retirement money. I also have values for fun money because it gives me something different than my day to day money and my future money. So, what's important to you about money?
And I'm trying to bring this in for a landing, but everything you
Sorry.
say brings another question. No, I love this, but I have to go back to this
Yeah.
one. Those categories that you're talking
Yeah.
about, does that, to what extent does that scale? And here's what I mean. If you're a person of means, it's simpler to say, I want to have all these monies, including fun money. If you are struggling to get momentum, particularly if you're a part of a couple,
Mhm.
say, and maybe one person wants that fun money and the other person doesn't want that fun
Yep.
money, is it important to try to follow those rules regardless of where you are in your financial situation? So even if you are now, I don't want to take an extreme. You're able to take care of your basic needs. Yeah, you're stuck on the hamster
You
wheel
bet.
a little bit, and you're on a budget, and you're just trying to get off the hamster
You
wheel.
bet. So, within this, understanding what's important to me about these different buckets of money doesn't mean I actually have the buckets of money. It doesn't mean that I've got an account for fun money. There might be a balance of zero in a non account. I might not have an account for fun money. But if I can start to recognize, you know what? Money could be fun. And if I had that fun money bucket, what would be important about my fun money? If I had a bucket for my retirement and my future money, what would be important about that? And make sure it's not the words of, I'm not fearful. Because if you're putting not fearful as a value, you're bringing fear. So if you weren't fearful, what would you be? I would have ease. It would give me ease. So more, what is it going to give me that towards stuff? So it's not saying you have to have an actual bucket for it.
Okay.
But again, let's go back to that energy aspect. That if I don't give myself permission to even think and contemplate about fun money, then I might not even know that it's possible to have fun money.
So thinking about that in a positive
Hmm.
way,
Or a
it
possible
doesn't lead
way.
you down, yeah, a possible way. It doesn't lead you down the rabbit hole of, I don't want to think about that because that's not attainable for me now, and it's not ever attainable for me.
That,
It's really, you're setting it up to be
yes,
aspirational.
because that moment that you go, I'm not going to think about that because it's not even possible for me. What are you telling yourself? What are you telling money? Now you're putting out there, this isn't possible for me. Okay, sure. Not possible. I'll never have fun money. Not possible. If we're not, and that then goes into, do I have a fixed or a growth mindset? Because if I say it's not even possible, it probably isn't. But if I can start to
Right.
dream a little bit about it, it moves it into possibility. Probability, I don't know. Possibility, anything's possible with possibility. As they say,
I love
possibilities are endless.
I love it. So let me say disciplined and get back to your resources because that's really going to be the key here. Your website is HeidiHeron.com, and that's really online headquarters. That's where all of your products and services are available.
Correct.
Just give us a quick flyover of what we can find
Yeah,
there.
you can find out how to work with me one on one, how to even learn neuro-linguistic programming if that's in your wheelhouse. And you'll see a few of the books that I've written. My newest one is Wizard of Cause, which I absolutely love. It's a fable type story about a woman named Avery who realizes that she's stuck and living in the effect of her life, and through a variety of different things figures out the masks that she's wearing and her values of what's important to her, and comes back to being responsible and in control of her life, and she becomes her own wizard of cause, and she's living at cause versus effect. So I would highly recommend that one.
I love it. And again, that's such a wide variety of services that you offer and resources that you
Yeah,
offer. So people can work with you one on one. They can pick up one of your books. There's a lot of ways to access the information that you've been sharing with us. So we'll be sure to add the link to HeidiHeron.com to the show notes of this episode. I've also got your Instagram, your Facebook, your YouTube, your LinkedIn all lined up to add. Outside of that, Heidi, I really appreciated the time. Thanks for being on CFO at Home today.
thank you very much for having me.